Coming up in today's newscast, the IDF demolishes the home of the terrorist who murdered Ari Fuld. A terrible murder strikes the heart of Tel Aviv last night as another girl is killed on the International Day Against Violence Against Women, and a 3-week-old baby has now become the latest victim of measles in Israel. The IDF has now announced that they will demolish the home of the terrorist that murdered Ari Fuld on September 16th. Ari Fuld, a pro-Israel advocate and longtime freelance correspondent here at ILTV, left behind a wife and 4 children when he was stabbed to death by 17-year-old Khalil Youssef Ali Jabarin near a supermarket in Gush Etzion. Yet even then, despite his fatal injuries, Ari pulled out his handgun and shot the assailant before collapsing to the ground, preventing what would have been another stabbing during his final moments. Since Fuld's death, thousands of people around the world have come forward to salute his courage, and he even recently received a posthumous Medal of Valor from the Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan, who wrote that, quote, Ari demonstrated supreme heroism and fearlessness when in his final moments he chased after the terrorist who had fatally stabbed him, neutralized him, and in so doing saved the lives of other civilians, end quote. And as for the terrorist, Jabarin will remain in custody until the end of his trial and reportedly faces charges of murder, 3 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of possession of an unlicensed weapon. In the wake of yesterday's car ramming attack, which injured 3 IDF soldiers in the West Bank, Knesset member Hanin Zoabi of the Joint Arab List took time again to tweet her solidarity with the Palestinian attacker and not his victims. Zoabi is no stranger to controversial actions and statements like these, though, as in the past she was even aboard the now infamous 2010 Mavi Marmara flotilla, and her actions and those of her colleagues have again then begged the question, what other country would tolerate speech and actions like these? Well, here with more is Davidi Hermelin, the president of the International Center for Public Diplomacy in Israel, with more. Davidi, thank you so much for joining us again.
Hello.
Okay, so again, her tweet was really towards Meretz, which is another party in the opposition, and she said that, we don't want your solidarity because this true solidarity includes solidarity with the way a victim performs their protest or their demonstration. So she's talking about the Palestinians here. Do you agree with that premise?
Of course not, because this is a direct way to anarchy. Let's say that I disagree with you about a certain topic. So does it mean that I can do anything I want to convince? So this is basically acceptance of the method of terror as legitimate way to influence politics. And I think that this is so pure support of terror as method that now we already can justify that even the Supreme Court will support the voices who I assume will call soon to suspend the MK Hanin Zoabi from Knesset, and for sure not to let her to be candidate again, because we are defended democracy, which means that in our law, if you support racism or terror, or if you oppose the declaration of Israel as Jewish and democratic state, so you have no right to be a candidate. The committee of the elections in Israel said before that Hanin Zoabi crossed the line, and the Supreme Court said this is
But again, this goes back to what I said earlier. All the way back to 2010, she was on the Mavi Marmara, and she's had made several statements. She's visited with terrorists and their families, in prisons, and she's spoken in international forums. So at what point? Why is this the line?
No, I think that she crossed the line. Just to make it clear, I think that she already before supported terror
so what's
actively.
Different? So what's going to change? Why are you more hopeful, or why do you think that there's a bigger chance now that she'll be?
I'll tell you why. Because before her expression was to support a specific action. She demonstrated empathy. Now she said that any expression of the so-called Palestinian frustration, even if it's by terror, it's okay. So she justified terror as method, as tool to influence politics, loud and clear. So now I think that even the tolerant Supreme Court of Israel should not let her to be a candidate again, and because now there is no doubt, it's not gray anymore. It's loud and clear. I think terror is legitimate, and they support terrorism against Israeli civilians.
Why do you think other parties within the left or within the opposition are reluctant to condemn, certain parts of speech that Hanin Zoabi and other colleagues of hers have made?
I think that also in the lines of Zionism, but just on the border, some of the extreme, still I would say Zionist left in Israel, they sometimes forget the difference between opposition to the government and its policy and opposition to the state. And in the progressive left of today, we can see that some doubts about the legitimacy of the concept of a nation state. And sometimes the hate is against Israel as an entity and not against a policy. And I think that this radicalism of the extreme left, now you can see this even in other topics. For example, in votes in Knesset, when they don't want to balance the vote while other members cannot vote. Tragedy of the left in Israel, I think.
All right, David Herman, thank you so much for coming in again.
Thank you.
All right, in other news, Monday evening, protests along the Gaza-Israel border continued this week, with 3 Palestinians reportedly getting injured by Israeli gunfire in response to the violence exhibited by the protesters. Roughly 1,000 Palestinians were present at the protest this week, throwing stones and rioting along the fence, while another 20-odd ships set sail towards the maritime border. Though unlike in previous weeks, it is worth noting that no explosives or firebombs were thrown at security services. In Hebron, however, a Palestinian teen from Hebron was arrested in connection to throwing Molotov cocktails with 2 other suspects near Jerusalem last night. And finally, the Southern District Attorney's Office also filed yesterday an indictment against a Gaza Palestinian man who was arrested 2 weeks ago on charges of infiltration, setting a greenhouse on fire in Netiv HaSara, and providing false reports. Though according to investigations, this may be exactly what the suspect wanted. Earlier this month, the suspect did indeed infiltrate the Israeli border illegally and burn down a greenhouse and warehouse in a nearby moshav, causing hundreds of thousands of shekels in damages. But the indictment also alleges that this same man has attempted such attacks 7 times since 2012, expressly to be put into Israeli jails. He even lied to Shin Bet interrogators about being a Hamas operative, which was later revealed to be false. Well, while he was released back into Gaza the previous times, this time it seems he'll finally get his wish. As if to prove the point, on the day just after the world marked International Elimination of Violence Against Women's Day, 2 teenage girls were found murdered here in Israel. ILTV's correspondent Joy Gavijon is here now again to tell us more. Joy, what happened? Because just yesterday we were reporting on this issue, and here we are again.
Yes, Aaron, here we are again, and this is very sad and very terrifying. In only 24 hours, the number of women murdered in Israel this year rose to 24. And this time we have to report the murder of 2 very young girls, Silvana Tsegai, who was 13 years old, and Yara Ayub, who was 16 years old. So first, the body of Yara Ayub, who had been missing since last Wednesday when she stopped at a bakery on her way to a friend's birthday, was found in a dumpster in the northern village of Jish, the place where she was originally from.
Do the police have a suspect?
Well, the circumstances around the murder and the disappearance haven't been cleared by the police yet, and the investigation has been put under a gag order. But what we do know so far is that 2 suspects were arrested. A 23-year-old man suspected of kidnapping Ayub and obstructing the investigation, and a 53-year-old man suspected of somehow being connected with the crime as well.
And what about Silvana then? You know, what happened to her?
Well, that's another horrible story. Silvana Tsegai, who was a 13-year-old child originally from Eritrea, she was found in an apartment in South Tel Aviv last night where she was apparently beaten to death. Now, the police are looking for Silvana's mother's ex-partner as a possible suspect, but so far they haven't found him.
Oh, God. Well, this is despicable. And I mean, obviously, you know, we don't yet know the motive in this incident, but what motive could possibly justify this? And this also means then that we're not just talking about violence against women, we're talking about violence against children.
Exactly. Actually, the National Council for the Child issued a statement saying, quote, "We cannot accept the murder of children, not on the streets and certainly not at their homes. And the protection of children in the family and in general needs to be at the top of the national list of priorities." So basically what they're asking is for the government to put more resources into early detection and immediate protection in dangerous situations. They're also calling for a full commitment and coordinated efforts between the Ministries of Health, Welfare, Education, and law enforcement.
All right, well, yesterday we reported that Prime Minister Netanyahu addressed this issue at this week's cabinet meeting and promised better enforcement, prevention, and punishments.
Yeah, and I really hope that happens because something has to be done. People all over the country are asking for some kind of solution here, and like you said, remember that this happened yesterday, just after more than 2,000 people gathered in the streets of Tel Aviv to protest against violence and domestic abuse in Israel. So if this is not a wake-up call for the authorities to act fast, well, I really don't know what is.
I couldn't agree more. Joy, tink you for your report.
Thank you, Ari.
Israeli police conducted dozens of arrests Sunday night in East Jerusalem of Palestinian Authority civilian and security officials who are suspected of illegal operations in Israel. Among other conflicts of interest, all the suspects, 32 total, have Israeli identification cards and also receive benefits from the State of Israel, which means they broke the law the moment they joined the Palestinian Authority security forces, an action specifically outlawed in the 1993 Oslo Accords. Police describe all the suspects as having engaged in activities directly affecting the personal safety of Israeli Arabs. And further, police confiscated thousands of shekels in cash, weapons and ammunition, uniforms, and various other documents from the suspects during their arrests and home searches. Finally, on similar charges, and for the third time this month, the Palestinian Authority appointed governor of Jerusalem, Adnan Reit, has also been arrested in Jerusalem. Reit is accused of again carrying out official PA activities within Israel, specifically that he allegedly aided in the arrest of Arab Jerusalemites who sold land to Jews and Israelis. Reit's first arrest followed the detention of American Palestinian Essam Akel in October for reportedly selling his old city home to a Jewish organization. The Palestinian Authority's intelligence chief in Jerusalem, Jihad Fakeh, was also arrested in connection to Akel's arrest. Israeli officials, in the meantime, are continuing to put pressure on the Palestinian Authority to release Akel, who has been in detention for 6 weeks now. In yet another blow to Palestinian Authority-United States relations, USAID, the United States Agency for International Development, will reportedly be cutting its staff in the West Bank and Gaza by up to 60%. The humanitarian aid organization has been ordered by the State Department to provide a list for the layoffs by December in what's to be the first step towards shutting down in the Palestinian territories completely. The announcement comes a few months after President Trump cut aid to UNRWA as well by nearly $200 million. And in fact, around the same time, it was reported that USAID offices in the West Bank and Gaza had not yet received a budget for the coming fiscal year. Further, USAID officials have also recently confirmed that these latest cuts are additional attempts at forcing the Palestinian Authority into negotiations. But critics of the move, most notably J Street President Jeremy Ben-Ami, argue that the Trump administration has worked systematically to destroy the U.S. relationship with the Palestinians and to close off every point of contact with the Palestinian people, adding that this further ending of humanitarian aid is a, quote, cruel and dangerous act designed to promote the hardline agenda of the Israeli right, end quote. That and that any peace plan the administration presents after this would be an absolute sham. Regardless of the reasons, though, one thing is for sure, and that's that the loss of U.S. aid in the Palestinian territories will be felt. U.S. aid has spent billions of dollars on the Palestinian people since the Oslo Accords were signed, and they've helped in building schools and educational programs, offering health care, and accessing clean water. The number of documented measles cases has increased again from 34 in 2017 to about 2,000 now so far this year, and hearing of this latest victim will boil your blood. The epidemic started in March and has been rapidly growing since then, largely caused by refusals to vaccinate. And here in the studio with the details is ILTV's correspondent, Doriel Mizrahi.
Hey, Aaron. It is really crazy. Like, just the beginning of this month, an 18-month child died of measles, the first time in 15 years in Israel. And just this morning, a 3-week baby was hospitalized who got the disease from his mother, who got it from a relative, both who weren't vaccinated. So we're talking an unvaccinated child received measles again from its mother, who received it from another relative, and none of them have vaccinations. None of them vaccinated, and this is the youngest person in history in Israel to get measles. She's just 3 weeks old.
Now, and I understand that this is unfortunately more prominent in the Haredi and ultra-Orthodox communities.
100%. The most measles in Israel this year and in the past came from Jerusalem, specifically in the Mea Shearim neighborhood in the Netulei Karta sect. So it's like really they're anti-Zionist who don't believe in vaccinating their children or having anything to do with the government. So they also don't vaccinate. There's like a lot of vaccinate your child, and they don't even listen to that.
Now I understand then that maybe in addition to education and kind of a big kind of propaganda type push to get people to understand the importance of vaccinations, I also understand that the health ministry has initiated a ban on any unvaccinated individuals from entering schools and other type of buildings.
People, teachers, parents, kids, anyone who's not vaccinated cannot get in.
How is that
whatsoever
helping?
So right now it's a law that wants to get passed. Obviously, rabbis and teachers are enforcing it. That's what they're telling parents, but it's not written by law yet. And it also, it doesn't stop it from getting to places like the UK, for example, where just last week, the British community there, the British Jewish community there, had a measles outbreak, and it was like, listen, the rabbis there was like, listen, you guys have to get vaccinated, not only you, but your children, and just...
Sure, yeah, we reported on that. It was something like 20% below the national average for vaccinations in the UK. Exactly. All right, well, yeah, we can only hope that some of this will start taking, because, the longer this goes on, the longer this issue of not vaccinating continues, the worse this is going to get. It's weakening herd immunity and putting people who can't afford to get vaccinated, like people with compromised immune systems, at risk.
Yeah, of course. I really think there's a social responsibility to these people. I understand that you want to know how to raise your children and what to do for them, but it's like these research
this is a social responsibility.
It's a social responsibility you have, and there's no research that is backed that it's not good for you to get this vaccine. So
go and get vaccinated.
Go get vaccinated.
All right. Doleal, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Aaron.
On Monday, the Conference of European Rabbis entered into an agreement with Israel's chief rabbinate regarding the recognition of conversions to Judaism. And as part of the deal, the rabbinate will acknowledge conversions performed by the members of the Coalition of European Orthodox Rabbis. But in return, the coalition leaders have agreed to reject any Israeli conversions performed outside of Israel's rabbinate, aka by a private conversion center, regardless of how Orthodox they are. The agreement was confirmed by 700 European Orthodox rabbis, which includes chief rabbis in the UK and France, and the move will make it easier for Orthodox European converts that want to move to Israel. The conference president Pinchas Goldschmidt also reiterated how important it was to set standards within the faith to, quote, ensure that those who have already converted are able to travel freely throughout the Jewish world, end quote. But opponents point out again that this would only be true of ultra-Orthodox converts who go through the rabbinate. Any convert or children of converts who entered Judaism through an unrecognized Orthodox or unorthodox Judaism would be outcast. The Itim organization, which operates as the halakha of the private rabbinical courts, has thus already turned to Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit in a plea to stop the deal, arguing that the rabbinate is making political deals to expand its power at the expense of the people. The Itim president added that his organization will fight this type of overreach, which anyway, quote, runs counter to Jewish law and disregards the needs of the Jewish people, end quote. Aside from the excitement inherent to travel, flying can often be a dreadful experience, especially if all you want to do is sleep or rest. But your head never has the right support. Well, Israeli-based company NapUpFly found a solution to make you feel like you're flying in first class even when you're in coach. And here to tell us all about it is NapUpFly's founder, Ben Cohen-Gazit, and their global communications director, Sigal Silvera. Thank you both very much for coming in today.
Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure to have you. So,
thank you.
Sigal, why don't you start us off? What is it that we have here? And how did it come about? Okay,
well, it started because Ben, who has 3 kids of his own, couldn't stand having his kids, in the car with their heads, the bopping head syndrome, we call it, where their heads bopping up and down, and, you're kind of trying to push them up all the time. So he came up with this genius product.
With the first product it's calling NapUp for Kids. It's adjust to any car, high big booster or car seat in the car. So it's very simple to use. It's very, very easy to install. And this is the first product that we sold all over 35 countries.
It's in sale 35 countries.
Yeah, already.
It's in the market. How's it doing? What's the market kind of research feedback that you've been getting?
It's amazing. Someone wrote me that it's the better idea since the slides sliced bread.
The best idea since sliced bread. And then we use that in our advertisement.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah.
so this is already
the first.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is the first.
And then.
Okay.
and then after I presented in the trade shows, etc.
Sure.
Every parents come to me and said, "Can I use it in the airplanes?" My distributor asked me, "Do you have one for adults?" And I said, and then I go back to the drawing board to think about the NapUpFly.
We were literally asked by everyone who saw this, great for my kid, but what about us? What about,
Sure.
what can we use it? Can we use this product?
We need it more.
Yeah, and Ben said, wait, we're going to make you something even better for airplanes.
Okay, so first of all, let's see the NapUpFly
Okay, this is the
and
NapUpFly.
tell us a little bit about that.
You can explain why I present it.
Okay, he'll open it up. So first of all, it is super, super easy to install. I mean, you just put it on any airplane seat. You snap it in a second or two. It doesn't bother the person behind you. And the best thing about it, as you can see, it comes in a really easy to carry and cool little case. You can put your passport inside as well, money. Sure. And the best thing,
You can see
there
there
is.
is.
right,
there
the
is-
inside. The best thing about it, I think, is that it's like I flew with it already, even when it was just a prototype, and it's like somebody is hugging your head. That's what it feels like you're being cuddled
So
from New
no more
York
that
to
neck
LA.
pain after 5
Nothing,
10-hour
nothing,
flights.
exactly.
Yeah.
And when you're ready to sleep, you just put the eye cover down, you put in the earphones, listen to your music, and you're in
And
dreamland.
This is the size of the product after you take it out from the case. Yeah, you can.
I think
you
all
can
the
open
products
it.
out there are so bulky, and I don't. It's
So what
ridiculous.
about like overhead monitors or something behind the seat? It doesn't cover those or
No,
anything?
we-
Behind the seat now because.
Yeah, the one in the headrest for the
No,
guy behind
if
you.
you,
It
if you
won't
can
cover
adjust
that?
the headrest, it's okay.
Yeah.
So
long
there's
as
an
you can
option
adjust
to
the
adjust the
headrest.
headrest.
If it
And
does
it-
happen to be a
this
seat
is
that
nice.
it falls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very
you
good.
see how,
Yeah.
it's super soft and
I can show you for a
Please.
minute, please. How it's take it out. You
So,
We
okay,
adjust
while
your
Ben,
head.
you're going to put this on,
Yeah.
let's talk about the Kickstarter on this.
right.
thing.
So we went to this is the Kickstarter is ending in about 60 hours, so people have to really, really hurry, and then it's going to go to Indiegogo. And then eventually it'll be sold all over the world as well. But I think that all those people who really like all these kind of cool gadgets and great solutions, and to be the first, those are the people who are ordering now, and also the price is great now on Kickstarter. Basically, what this product does, I think that no other product does, is it puts you in your own personal sleep zone. A comfortable little sleep zone that you can just fly kind of in your own little space.
very easy. You
Wow,
attach it.
all
You
right.
adjust it to the head of the
Okay,
straps.
so I can see it
As you
doesn't
can see
cover
in the movie
anything.
right now.
You put it on,
So
And then-
thin
and then you just
Yeah,
flop
and then you
the visor down.
take it
I
down
love it. All right.
and up. And very important thing that we have here, it's that you can connect it to your device music.
And then that's it.
There is
All
a
right.
built-in earphones. You
So
connect.
you're really
Yeah,
private.
yeah,
you
you're
block out all
really
the
in
noise.
your-
You can
You
listen
plug
to your
it.
own thing.
Exactly.
You plug it
All right. Well,
here.
well, I have to.
You want one, right? You want
I
one.
do
Yes.
actually. I really do want one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hide this under the table before you guys leave. But listen, thank you guys so much for coming in.
Of course.
Check out NapUpFly for everybody watching. Check out NapUpFly on Kickstarter, and then
Thanks
later on
so
Indiegogo.
much.
Make sure to get one at its reduced price now if you're interested. And thank you so much for coming
Thanks
in.
for
This
having
is-
us.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you
been a
very
lot of
much.
fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. After hearing the news of the ongoing battle over conversion acknowledgement in Europe, today's word is to convert or litgayer. When someone converts or mitgayer, it's an official change to their religious faith or beliefs, and people decide to mitgayer or convert all the time and for many different reasons. Well, converting to or litgayer to Judaism, and especially in Israel, is very difficult, as the only recognized way to do it is to go through ultra-Orthodox and rabbinate overseen halakha or Jewish law, and the process can take years. Just remember that at least in Judaism, the rule is that once someone is a Jew, they're a Jew, and you're not even supposed to mention the itgairut or conversion for 7 generations after the fact. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be partly cloudy and cool with a low of around 58 or 14 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow you can expect mostly clear skies and a slight rise in temperatures to a high of 78 or 26 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.72 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you for watching.